There you go. So there is some relevance to biochemistry and physics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey.
Shall we take our next caller, who I think wants to talk about God? And then there's a couple more lined up. But please don't send me a contact request unless you actually want to appear on the show. So let's see if we can bring in our second caller of the show, and I can't because I can't find him. That's odd. Oh yes, I'm terribly sorry, he is there. My bad.
I was wondering, when I'm talking to religious people, and we're talking about evidence of God and something like that, sometimes it happens that they answer that they don't care if it's true, they just still want to believe. And at that point, I don't know what to say anymore. If they don't care about evidence, how can I convince them that what they believe is bullshit? I don't know what to do at that point, and I would like to know what you do when this happens.
The way you put it in the contact request is, when you hear the words, "I'm not interested in evidence," how do you react?
Yes.
Who would like to go first? Concordance?
I will.
You've been a bit
I will.
quiet. Concordance.
Try to sell them a bridge. Try to sell them a car. Try to sell them anything, because someone who doesn't care if what they believe is true is a gold mine for a marketer or an advertiser or someone trying to sell, let's say, faith healing services, right? So if they don't care if what they believe is true, if they feel no need to be skeptical, I think you have to walk away. There's no way to convince someone who doesn't care about the truth, right? Then what are you going to argue? But yeah, if you're going to look for an opportunity, try to sell them a bridge.
If only I was an atheist with no moral compass, I could totally exploit it, yes.
Hey, there are no objective morals, so do whatever you feel like, right?
There's no atheist that's got any moral value either. No, it is a tricky one, and I think concordance really is just nailed it. I mean, if someone doesn't care about evidence, what can you do? Thunderfoot.
Yeah, wait till low tide and sell them some land.
It really is true. You cannot debate someone who has admitted that they don't care about the truth. There's nowhere to go from that position except to show them that they do indeed care about the truth. Everyone cares about the truth when they go to buy a car or a house or something that requires a little evaluation. You know, Consumer Reports, if you catch them reading the newspaper, do they care if the stories in the news are correct, or are they a regular Inquirer or Daily Mail reader? You know, those are the kinds of things where everybody cares if the information they're presented with has some truth value to it. And if you can reframe the discussion, get them to agree to the little things, you know, again, about trying to sell them the car. I have a car for you. It's a Lamborghini. It was made in 1852. Right? It runs on
I think you've got to add, because usually the argument is that religion makes me feel good, and therefore I don't care whether it's true or not because it makes me feel good. So I think the dimension that you've got to add to your Lamborghini is it's an invisible Lamborghini that will make you feel really, really good. You've just got to believe that the Lamborghini will make you feel really, really good, and it's an absolute bargain at whatever you've got in your life savings account. Absolute bargain. How could you put a price on being that happy?
Well, of course, we have to say it because that's the name of the show, but you could sell them a magic sandwich that cures cancer.
I actually tried the invisible dragon in my garage thing, and I told them that they have to pay me $100 per week, or I will send them my invisible dragon to kill them and burn in hell, something like that. But I didn't receive any money from them.
Well, that escalated quickly.
But I actually like that as a variant. I like that as a variant of the magical dragon proof, because you know, heaven is the carrot approach that, you know, if you obey me now and do whatever, you'll get some great reward later. But I've never actually seen anyone twist that around to this stick approach. I've never actually seen it done like you just did there, which is, if you don't give me money now, the magic dragon will come around and eat you, and only you giving me magic money now will stop it. I like the twisted version of the Stick and carrot.
Can I pause you there, Thunder?
The
I'm getting a
invisible
message.
stick.
One second. I'm getting a message from Tony. Apparently, only half the people can see the show. He's going to restart it, so it'll take a few moments. Okay, I'm told we're back with you live. I can't see it, but let me just refresh my page. I suspect that's what people need to do if they are not seeing this. Oh no, there we go. Yeah. Okay. In the break, we offloaded Stefan, but thank you very much for the call, Stefan. I think we've effectively dealt with your point. And I want to introduce the next caller, who is Keith Hodges. Let's see if he can join us. Are you with us, Keith?
Yes.
Sorry? Are you there?
Hello, am I on?
You are.
So, I do this healing, which I take...
Is it possible that you could turn your microphone up, because you're very quiet for me?
Do we have a caller at the moment?
Don't know.
Are you there, Hodges?
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Right, so what I do is I do this healing. I take it you're familiar with this because I recall that one time on my page you said you wanted to kiss me.
Yeah, see. Oliver, please, you're going to have to do better than that. Talk amongst yourselves whilst I find this person who says that I've blocked them and wants to join the show and talk about God. We've not had many trolls for a while, have we?
It's always Oliver. It's always Oliver. With his bad accent, he's just really not good at them. Next time I want to hear a Chicago accent.
Well,
I think he's only
thanks.
got one.
Thanks for trying.
Yeah. Okay, God wants to join us. This is a person I think says that I had blocked him. I'm not sure whether I'm optimistic.
Was a name like God?
Oh, maybe I have blocked him because I can't seem to add him to the call. Now, this is an interesting thing. I know I've done it before and I can never remember exactly how to do it. How do I unblock someone? Oh, no, it doesn't look like... Yeah, there we go. God. I don't have good feelings in my water about this caller. We'll come to that in a moment, Concordance, if needs be. God, there you are. Why you keep on posting in the chat when we've invited you to the call, I don't know. Are you with us? Concordance, as we seek to try and, maybe through the power of prayer, get God onto the show, perhaps you'd like to tell us about the Dawkins speech that you heard over the weekend.
You know, I'm impressed that he's not only God, he's God's God. So he's super God. I've decided to start believing in super God.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why do you need the middleman? Why not go straight to the source? God.
If God was, God exists, he had a creator, and therefore super God exists.
But
Dawkins,
only the super God doesn't need a creator.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, of course. He's eternal.
Yeah, super God.
Unless there's if there were a blasphemous idea that there was a super God or super God, I don't know, one of those two. But anyway, Dawkins was talking very politically, and that's actually sort of the theme of the meeting because we're in a full-blown election season. Dawkins on the state capitol, the Texas state capitol, which by the way is larger than the U.S. state capitol. He
gotta be for Texas,
it's an obligatory comment. He was not able to full out endorse Obama and condemn Romney, but he could talk about the rights and freedoms that people have. So it was very carefully worded. So he said things like, you might question that, or you have a right to question whether or not you want someone representing you who believes that one wife isn't enough, or that his God not only exists.
Magic underwear and that blacks, what was it? Blacks weren't allowed into the Mormon Church until 1978 or something.
Yeah, that's all true. Native Americans are descendants of the tribe of Israel who got lost.
And what's more, the reason they have red skins. I mean, this is great. They were the evil tribe that killed off the good tribe, and so God cursed them by making their skin red. And so there are no good Indians in Mormonism. They're all this cursed race of Israel.
So on the last day of my vacation in Utah, my wife and I went. This was long time ago. Went to the key Mormon temple, the big one in Salt Lake City, and we were just curious.
Pretty, isn't it?
Yeah, it's beautiful, and it dominates like half the city. It's huge. It's like 8, 9, 10 city blocks of really gorgeous architecture and murals, and so we were kind of curious to see it. What the hell? You're in Salt Lake City. And so we went in and we gave them our names, expecting, okay, we'll get emails or something from them. We arrived home. The little Mormons had been to our door probably 5 or 6 times already. In the 3 days it took us from that point to get home, they had already been knocking. So my dad thought it was pretty funny, and then eventually he gave them a different address so they could actually find us. At the time we were staying with some friends, and so they ambushed at a friend's house, and we sat down with them and listened to them. They're young. I didn't want to beat them up. I didn't want to mentally or verbally beat them up, but we set them straight. We're not too persuaded by this stuff because we know the whole backstory, and it's just too...
I also have a story with the Mormons, and of all places, I was actually in Oxford. And I got accosted on the streets in Oxford by a couple of Mormons. And I mean, I wasn't aggressive, but I, made it fairly clear that all the arguments that they were giving for Mormonism were exactly the same arguments with just different names that a Muslim would give for Islam. And yeah, it was clear to me that they had a sort of formula to work from, and if they didn't buy on this, and this, then they were basically they had to disengage, politely disengage, but you could almost see this sort of tipping point where they'd lost interest, and that they had to get on because I was taking up all of their time. They could be saving someone's soul.
But anyway, Dawkins was talking about the political landscape and what an American atheist could do, which political party he might tend towards, or she.
I'm just curious, actually, whilst we've got a moment. How do you think it's going to play out? I mean, what's your view from the sort of feet on ground in Texas as to how the election's going to pan out? And because it looked for a while like Obama was going to walk away with it, but now it's like neck and neck.
It's down to the wire. Usually the incumbent, unless the challenger has a real advantage, the incumbent usually has the edge on independent voters. But I don't know. I'm not good at politics.
Can I ask you this, Concordance? Did you watch the second debate between them? I mean, the first one was painful, so painful I couldn't watch it. But the second one, I felt that it was a huge embarrassment. You've got 2 grown men seeking election to one of the highest offices in the world, and they were squaring up to each other like school kids in the playground. It was a dreadful display.
Yeah, you know what? Our political system is so messed up that, and here's where it really went awry. The media started covering it like a sports event. So that now we don't talk about the policies, we talk about who appealed to women voters more and what demographic are they appealing to. Like everyone out there is watching the polls to see who's ahead rather than who would be the best candidate, who has the best ideas. And of course we're so laser focused on the presidential race that it obliviates all of the other races that are probably more significant. The House and the Senate, and the other legislative elements, no one pays nearly as much attention to. And so you get a lot of straight party voting. People vote Obama or Romney, and then everybody underneath them. And that's a shame.
And it
so
all
much
boils.
politics.
I mean, this is the crazy thing. So the election actually boils down to just the swing states. The other ones don't really matter. And in the swing states, you're only looking for a couple of percent one way or the other. And so, you get this huge amount of resources focused on this really small amount of people. And that's what determines who runs the country.
But it's almost like, Cowboys versus, not Cowboys, the Redskins versus the Cowboys.
Jets or something,
two sports teams. And all their fans are on one side with their faces painted blue, and the other ones are on the other side with their faces painted red. And there's this sense of all of those guys are idiots, and all of those guys are idiots, and we're going to beat the heck out of them. I've never liked that approach.
I mean, I think it's even more subtle than that. It's that great start. It's one of the most poignant of the original Star Treks. There's the guys who are black on one side and white on the other. Right. And then the other guy, and then there's the mirror images of them. And so they're basically identical. They're just mirror images, and they absolutely despise each other. Yeah, Charon, there we go. And the differences between Democrats and Republicans is, a couple of percent at best. I mean, all
it really actually is who they're funded by. But once they get in power, they have these differentiating causes, that they build this big differentiation on, abortion and, small business. And,
that would be. The abortion thing would be, I think, a prime example of how bastardized the American election system has become, in that you do get these single-issue voters. So all you have to say is, I approve of abortion or I don't, and you can sort of cash in on a load of these voters, and if that's what you're going to do in the swing states to win, then what your opinions are becomes very much secondary.
But this again touches thunder.
Let me just finish the thing here. So Ohio, this is 2 elections ago, but what's he called? The strategist for Bush, big gelatinous ass guy.
Oh, yeah, I know who you're talking about. Oh, hell, his name's...
What's he called?
Yeah.
Someone will remember. Carry on with the point.
Yeah, the strategy... Rove, there we go. Karl Rove. Thank you. Prodigy. He got gay marriage on the ballot in Ohio, and that was enough to motivate a load of these religious right people to come out in a swing state. That won Ohio, and it won the election.
But this is a point that we touched upon very briefly, I think, on the last show, I think, in that if somebody does make a statement such as anti-abortion and thereby receives more votes than his opponent by taking that stance, is he not doing what he should do as an elected officer, namely representing the vote, the views of the electorate?
But they have no intention of actually doing anything about it, which is why they never actually talk about. They say the things that people want to hear. They're playing the political machine, and part of that too is money. And it saddens me that they have these massive war chests that are supposed to essentially buy votes. That's what that really implies. I get my advertising message out there, and people are going to vote for me because they see my name more. Jeez, what is wrong with that? But they make these promises. They have certain positions they hold, but they never actually have a plan. They never actually lay out in great detail what they're going to do and then actually implement that. It would be nice to vote for someone who had a certain plan that the people could review, and then that plan goes to the legislature, and the legislature make it happen. That's the ideal democracy to me, is you're actually voting on policy and not on clever sound bites in the right position on a topic. Because if you take the wrong position, you're going to lose X number of votes. It's a game.
I'm going to move on because that
can
wasn't.
I just,
well, Thunder, make your
very
point.
briefly
Then we're going to take the next caller because I've got a few stacked up now.
I just want to very briefly touch on what might seem a disrelated topic. In the lab that you work in Concordance, roughly what fraction of the scientists are American-born and American-educated?
My team, probably 30%.
30%.
Where do the rest come from?
Mostly China, a few Indians, and we have one Japanese.
I mean,
And that's a team of how many? You're muted.
I'm sorry, I'm muted. 9 people.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that to me sounds about right. And to me, if I were America, this would be the line one item for me. And if you're in a technologically advanced nation like America, everything is contingent on basically having access to people who can do the technologically advanced stuff. Now, at the moment, I think the numbers that Concordance has given are about right. In the numerate sciences, it's about 2/3 of America is run on imported brain power. Now, you can do that at the moment because you can bring people in from China, but that I think is actually changing now. I've noticed at the conferences over the past few years that the Chinese are going back to China. China is their home territory. China's now got shitloads of money for research. What does America have to offer them? Now, the thing is that to actually turn around an education system takes probably about 10 years minimum. And that's the sort of time frame you need to get and to basically educate a whole bunch of people from 10 years old up to degree level or something. Maybe 30. And that's just not an issue that you don't see education raised as an issue almost anywhere in American politics. And I think that's missing out. The dependence on foreign oil is very easy to see. But I think America also has this great dependence on foreign brain power.
But before anyone accuses us of racism, let's say this, or anti-immigration sentiment, it's a good thing that the U.S. has the recruiting power to attract the best people from hundreds of nations, that we can recruit all these really top minds. And that's one thing that we've benefited from. But Thunder is right. I have noticed that a lot of the Chinese people that I work with are probably secretly looking for faculty spots back in China, because the Chinese research market or the Chinese research funding has skyrocketed. I don't know, 400, 500% increase every year. They are going to take away our research primacy probably 20, 30 years.
Before we go any further, can I just say, excuse me, Thunder, it appears from the viewing figures that we are featured at the moment. If you happen to be watching from the outside, so to speak, do come and join us. You'll be joining the Magic Sandwich Show, where we're discussing issues of science and, I suspect, religion, also very quickly, or very soon. Thunder, your comments on Concordance's point, but then we're going to go to Michael, who's been waiting patiently for some moments now.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was just going to briefly add that whilst I would agree that Concordance is right, that America can currently attract the people, the thing is that if all of a sudden you can't attract those people or they don't want to come, then you've got to rely on your homegrown talent, and America basically doesn't have it. It's very vulnerable like that. It's the equivalent of your foreign oil dependency. I would say it, but anyway, sorry.
Okay, it's an interesting topic, I know, but as I say, Michael has been waiting patiently. It's going to be a complete shift in the topic of the conversation. But Michael, over to you.
Good morning. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Ah, good. Yeah, I wanted to talk briefly about freedom of the press, because it's sort of an application of freedom of speech, but often sort of glossed over.
Okay, what's your view on it?
Well, it's the issue recently with Julian Assange sort of brought it to the fore in that, I don't know, just want to get your thoughts on it, really.
I'm always keen to know what the caller's thoughts are before we discuss
okay.
it.
Well,
what about Julian Assange and the freedom of the press? I don't see any
what I know about the story is like
at
this.
the moment.
Julian Assange wrote a load of stuff on WikiLeaks about the American government, and they got pretty annoyed about it and demanded extradition from Britain. And being bending over backwards for them, we raided the embassy to try and get him.
We did what?
I believe so. I'm not sure if that was a rumour or not. I didn't look into it too deeply.
I don't
Raided
think
what?
any embassies were raided.
Good. But Ecuador, he took asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy. And I just thought it was a pretty sorry state of affairs when the freedoms of people, Ecuador is having to defend a man's freedom from a country like Britain and America and Sweden.
What freedoms do you think Ecuador is protecting? It's got nothing to do with that. Why he is there is to avoid extradition to Sweden and then possibly extradition to the United States. It's got nothing to do with freedom of speech or freedom of expression or freedom of the press.
It's because he wrote some things on his WikiLeaks page about the American government.
Right.
And that's why the Americans wanted to extradite.
What's that got to do with freedom of the press?
Well, you should have the right to write those things without...
Do you think that anyone could write anything?
Not anything. I mean,
right, so there are limits. You accept there are limits. What are those limits? Well, go back to one that we were talking about before. Nick Griffin disclosing on Twitter the address of a gay couple. Do you think that's... if he was prevented from...
I mean, I would actually
be... on freedom of speech?
I would be in support of our caller on this one. That I think that... and this is another thing where society has to develop differently, because there is this instrument of the internet that allows the very rapid dissemination of information. And in that light, a lot of what Assange did was let people know some of the shabbier things that governments do. And whilst that might be very embarrassing for some of these governments, I think that ultimately that's the sort of thing that makes for a better run society. Now, yeah, you're right. You do actually have to have some limits. Like, for instance, if someone in wartime is broadcasting to the enemy when your convoys are leaving port, then this is something that's directly going to lead to the deaths of hundreds, maybe thousands of people, and adversely affect the security of your entire nation. But that's nowhere near in the league of what Assange was doing. The stuff that he was putting out was far more of things that were politically embarrassing to America, but you had to really stretch it to actually make these security issues.
Well,
I think it was
determined yet. That's my point. Anyway, sorry, concordant.
Well, I think isn't the classic test, and I'm not good at this either, but some speech constitutes an act, and there's a difference between speech and the act which derives from something that is said. So, for example, a threat is not something that is protected speech because it constitutes an act, a clear and present danger to someone else. If what is disclosed constitutes, let's say, an effort to cause someone bodily harm or to reduce the operating efficiency of a security agency that results in thousands of people being directly harmed, that has to be taken into account against the cost of the free speech issue. It's not a black and white issue. In either way, there's no clear dividing line as far as I can tell. Some of what was put on WikiLeaks, I think, would fall under complete free speech protection. Other things, though, were operational details of agencies designed to prevent harm against people. And so when you inhibit someone's ability to save someone else's life, then you have to answer for the role that you play in causing harm. So in that case, that speech constitutes an act that would not necessarily be protected as free speech. When you're talking about someone's opinion, it's always very clear. When you're talking about facts that result in clear and immediate danger to someone else, it's a very different thing. So freedom of the press is the freedom to print what someone thinks and facts that don't cause an immediate interference with protecting someone's life or harming someone.
Now, while I would agree with almost everything that you said there, I think that even the worst of the stuff that Assange put out, it's stuff that could have had implications, but almost certainly had none. Kind of like writing a wiki article on making nuclear weapons. It would help you towards making a nuclear weapon, but in reality, it doesn't really get you anywhere. And I think that's where a load of the stuff there's, there was this thing that he put up all these sort of whereabouts of agents and the such like, and there's no real. I mean, the idea that Al Qaeda has any sort of resources to do this sort of thing is an absolute joke. I mean, I don't believe for a second that they had people reading through the stuff on WikiLeaks, because eventually the stuff does just get drowned in volume. There's just a lot of junk there and not much information.
So let's say you have a lookout in your group, and the lookout is his job, her job is to yell, "Look out, the police are coming," right? Is that speech something that person is responsible for, right? In that case, where the actual speech is trying to prevent someone from, is facilitating the breaking of the law.
Right, but in that case, I don't think it's the speech that's the problem. It's the breaking of the law. So conspiracy to commit crime.
So did the lookout do anything wrong by yelling "Look out, police" in such a way that the lawbreaker can escape?
I don't.
Can you hold that person responsible for saying those words?
There are conflicting authorities in this country in relation to, for example, police having speed checks on the side of the road, seeing whether people are exceeding the speed limit or not. There's one case that suggests that someone that flashed their lights at a car heading towards the speed trap was not guilty of any offence because they're actually trying to prevent an offence. But there's another case that completely conflicts with that. It is a grey area.
Well, what about? Let me give you a slightly cleaner.
With grey areas because that's where lawyers make their money. So
let me give you a cleaner example. Maybe
grey areas.
Let's give me a cleaner example. So the police are coming down the street and they're looking to stop a murder that could be in progress, or a man planting a bomb. Let's do that. Man planting a bomb. One of his compatriots is standing on the street and tells the police to go right. And the police go right, and the bomb explodes because he was to the left. So in that case, the person is interfering with the ability of the police to save lives or stop a crime from happening. Is that person responsible for their actions, or was it sort of a consequence-free speech?
I mean, I don't think it's the actions. I mean, you're sort of right in this sense that it was their speech that is what allows them to be prosecuted. but the crime that they get committed for, that they would get prosecuted for, it would be along the lines of conspiracy to
Obstruct.
prevent, to obstruct justice or something along those lines. It's not. So the crime that they're charged with isn't.
So let's switch focus now, because now we're on Julian Assange, and he discloses wiretaps, legal wiretaps, being basically people discovering that their phones are tapped through a leak. Right? That means that the FBI, who were monitoring some sort of a sting, could be prostitution, it could be drug deals, and they find out that there's a wiretap on their phones, and that now that resource is no longer available to the FBI, and that hinders the investigation. Is that protected speech? Disclosing a wiretap, a legal wiretap, let's say.
Well, I mean, I think there has to be a reasonable case that there was a probability that disclosing this information would lead to an actionable, something actionable happening. And in the case that you suggest, I think that seeing as prostitution rings, etc., are unlikely to monitor WikiLeaks, that whether the information exists technically in the public domain or not is almost irrelevant, because the chances of actually getting back to the people who can take some action about it are too small. So that there is this sort of probabilistic thing. Now, if you were to say, for instance, write to the people telling them it's on WikiLeaks, then that's in a different league, I think, because there you've got 100% certainty that you are disrupting an ongoing investigation or something. But in the case...
sorry, Thunder, once you finish, we'll go to back to Michael.
Okay, so for instance, with most of the WikiLeaks stuff, the argument was, well, he disclosed stuff about what was happening in Afghanistan. Well, maybe, but the chances of anyone actually being able to take actionable actions on that data, as far as I could see, were almost zero. And indeed, we have heard of no cases where actionable data actions have been taken based upon data released by Assange. At least I think that's the state of play. Anyway, over to Michael.
Yeah, I think Thunderfoot has more or less summed up my thoughts on it, really. It is a very grey area. It's not one that can be really well defined. Specifically with Julian Assange, it is dubious as to whether he actually caused any harm, which is why I was a bit less than impressed at our government's handling of the situation. With him being extradited, I'm not sure if there was sufficient grounds. Like he said, if Sweden only wanted to question him, then why take him over there? Why can't they just do it in the embassy? But yeah, Thunderfoot more or less summed up my thoughts completely there.
But neither one of you is making a free speech argument anymore. You're making a probabilistic argument. That is that the speech didn't technically cause any harm. Not that it was protected, but that was ineffective speech. Do you see the distinction?
Yes, I was going to make that observation about Thunderfoot's comment, but can you help us with this? Because I can't recall exactly what potential charges America is suggesting it's going to lay against him if that opportunity ever arises.
I assume it would be sedition. Do they still have sedition?
Don't ask me about
or
it.
espionage.
I don't even know the law in my own country, let alone
espionage,
America.
Maybe.
No one,
or maybe actually it may well be one of those new Patriot Act things where giving aid and succor to the enemy, which can basically constitute anything. I think I heard one of the more liberal readings of the law, which of course hasn't really been tested yet, would include if you are the vendor that sells something to someone, a terrorist, then you can actually be charged under this act. I mean, there are some really fairly repressive things.
Draconian is the norm.
Let me answer the question though. November 2010, he was. It was proposed that he be prosecuted under the Espionage Act of 1917, and that it should be declared a terrorist, and that WikiLeaks was asked to be designated as a foreign terrorist organization, an FTO. So that's all I know is what I read on Wikipedia here.
I have to say that my own personal opinion is that he's not so much worried about being extradited to the US. I think he's more concerned about facing the questions from the Swedish authorities about the rape charges, or potential.
I thought those had mostly been dropped. I thought they had
They
sort of
still want to
evaporated.
question him. I don't know.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they might want to question him. But I thought the actual charges had been dropped. Am I wrong on that?
From what I saw, the case against him in the Swedish court was flimsy. Is probably the best you could describe it as. It was sort of almost looks drummed up. I don't want to say it, but it does look a bit.
But
suspicious.
not only drummed up. Yeah, I'm getting one thumb up for it here, saying that I'm right. But the allegations were dropped.
I'm
there
not aware of that.
I thought I saw something on that. I might be wrong. Best look into it yourselves.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. And on that note, Michael, I'm going to move on because we've got a couple more callers to fit in. But thank you very much indeed for your call. Let's move straight on because I've got two people lined up, and we are 15 minutes before we should normally end. I know that we usually overrun, but
just so you know, Swedish rape warrant for Assange cancelled. BBC News, Julian Assange charges dropped.
What date was that?
What date is that? 21st of August. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll have to look into it.
It's all over the
I
place.
don't know enough about it to feel comfortable commenting. Anyway, let's move on. Are you with us?
Yeah, I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you perfectly. How can we help you, sir?
Initially I had a different topic in mind, but you guys started talking about the space jump, and I thought this would be a more interesting topic to talk about.
Okay.
There is this recent finding of Earth-sized planets by this Kepler project in NASA. And it seems that they're finding far more planets than they initially estimated of this size. And let's say I don't have very high hopes of them finding actual alien life, at least not in my lifetime. But I would say that the chances of that are probably higher than seeing certain level of social justice in the world should be achieved. But anyways, should there be any sort of alien life findings, let's say in different levels here, bacterial life, or some sort of jellyfish thingy, and on the third level, something that's actually like an intelligent life. How do you think that this would affect the social relations in our planet?
Well, this is interesting because one of the topics which we've been intending to talk about recently, but I don't think we've ever got round to it, is the mission to Mars and Curiosity now roaming around the Martian surface looking for signs of life, or signs of previous life.
So I've got a brief question for you, DPR. Riddle me this. What does the Mars rover and the original Batmobile have in common? In fact, does anyone know? I'm looking in the comments.
Depends how blunt your pencil is, Thunderfoot. There are many things that they could have in common. For example, they both have wheels. mean, cut to the chase.
No.
We've got
There we
10
go.
minutes
Someone
left.
gets it. Get a slow tart gets it. Both were nuclear powered.
There you go. Okay, that was really.
That's. I mean, nothing makes you feel safer than having nuclear powered cars driving around Gotham City.
I actually thought that they had outlawed the use. I mean, that there was an international treaty to ban nuclear-powered probes in space.
There have been numerous things like that, but I mean, the bottom line is that you can't get enough solar panels on a Martian rover to supply the power. I mean, once you can only get so many watts per meter of solar panel. The sun's nowhere near as bright as it is on. What is it? It's a inverse squared. So there's only about half the light that you get on Earth, on Mars, and you get out to places like Cassini, and you're down to something like 100th of the light that you get here. A nuclear thermoelectric battery is the only way to really do that sort of thing.
Well, didn't some of the previous missions fail because the solar collectors got so covered with dust that there's no way to recharge?
That's a bizarre one, actually, because that was one of the things that they were forecasting was going to be a problem with Spirit and Opportunity. Because there was dust blowing around on Mars, it settled on the solar panels, and there was nowhere to clean it off. And it actually turned out that the winds were actually, every now and again they would get one of these little dust devils that would come along and sort of blow all the dust off the rover. So it was one of the things where no one really knew. But of course, you go on a thermoelectric battery, and all it is essentially a block of low-level radioactive waste that generates heat, and then you get a Peltier effect. Thermoelectric thing that basically turns the differential of heat into electricity, and you've got yourself a battery that'll put out really constant wattage with no moving parts for a very long period of time, which is why...
I'm terribly sorry to interrupt you. I'm acutely aware of the time, and also, whilst I'm sure our audience love the nerdy conversations between you and Concordance, you're off topic because you're not addressing the question that was asked by Shundred. And perhaps, Shundred, for the sake of the panelists and also the audience, do you want to repeat your question? I think it was what social impact would it have if we had vampire?
That's it.